Hello everyone, this is Professor Robertsolis. Welcome to this video lesson. We're going to be talking about how to create a voltage calculator project in Visual Basic. So let's switch over to Visual Basic, and you can see that I've already created my project, Voltage Calculator Project. I have a form ready to go. So I'm going to simply drag and drop a button, a label, and a text box from the toolbox area. I'm going to minimize this. And let me go ahead and move this label to the upper left-hand corner. For the text property, I'm going to say enter the current. I'll put a label, or a text box rather, right next to that. I'm going to take these two, Control-C, Control-V for copy and paste. Move that about right there. And then I'll say enter the resistance. Okay. Looks like this is a little bit longer, so let me move this over here, and then I'll move this over here like this. Okay, that looks better. And then we'll put a button over here. I'll make this button a little bit larger. That'll be calculate voltage. And then we'll put a label at the very bottom. So I'll just take this one, copy and paste it. I'm going to change the auto size property to false, border style to fixed 3D. I'll go ahead and create a label that looks something like this, approximately the same size as the button. Say something like that. I want the text to be centered both horizontally and vertically, so we'll change the text align to this one over here, middle center. So click this guy over here, you can see how that aligns the text. And then of course there's not supposed to be any initial text in that label, so I'll simply double click the text property, hit delete, get rid of that text. Okay, so let me go ahead and reduce the size of the form. I don't want a minimize or a maximize box, so I'll simply double click on minimize box, maximize box to change both of those properties to false. This is going to be called the voltage calculator, so we'll say voltage calculator. Alright, so that takes care of the graphical user interface. Now we have to give names to the text boxes, the button, and also this label. Well, for this text box, since it's a text box, we start off with the Hungarian notation of TXT, and then we'll say current, because that's what the user is going to enter, a value for the current. Over here, we'll say TXT resistance. The button will be BTN calculate voltage. And then, of course, our label at the very bottom, we're going to call this LVO result. Alright, let me switch back over here to my PowerPoint presentation. The idea is this. You're going to create a function, or not a function rather, you're going to create a project that determines the voltage. Now voltage is supposed to be the current times the resistance. Sometimes you just say V is equal to IR. So what we need from the user is we need the current, which is I, we need the resistance, which is R, and we multiply those two numbers together, and then we'll get the voltage. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do. Let's switch back over here to the Visual Basic program. Let me double check over here to make sure that I've named everything properly. It looks like I have. So let me save my work. We'll click Save. And now I can double click on Calculate Voltage, because that's the event that needs to be triggered in order to take the two input values, calculate the voltage. Okay, so I'll double click on Calculate Voltage. And again, I'm going to start off with my comments. So declarations, get user input, output, calculation, and then output. For the declarations section, ask yourself what needs to be input, what needs to be output. Well, I need to input the current and the resistance, and I need to output the voltage here. So current, resistance, voltage. So dim current has double, dim resistance has double, dim voltage as double. Now the reason why I created these as doubles is because I want the user to be able to put in real numbers, that is, numbers with a decimal point, for both the current, resistance, and then of course the voltage. That'll be output as a double as well. Okay, so now in terms of getting the user input, we need to get the values that are entered in this text box and also in this text box. So over here we'll say current is going to be assigned, and then we'll say convert dot to double whatever is inside of the text box current.text. Same thing for resistance. we're going to assign that convert.toDouble, whatever is inside of the txt resistance text box. Okay, so we're taking the text from this text box, we're converting it into a number, and we're going to place it into the variable called current that we declared up here. Same thing over here, we're going to take the text from this text box, we're going to convert it into a double, and we're going to place it into a variable called resistance. Now we're ready for the calculation. Well, you recall from the PowerPoint presentation that the voltage is equal to the current times the resistance. Now I said equal to, I really have to be careful with my language here because that's not the equal symbol. This is called the assignment operator. So really what's happening is I have to read this from right to left, namely the current times the resistance is being placed into the voltage variable. Well, now that I have this calculated, I can output the results. So I want to put the voltage number into this label, but this thing has text as its property, right? It has a text property, it doesn't have a number property. So that means that I'll have to convert this. So LBL result.text, we'll say convert.toString, whatever is inside of the variable voltage. So now we'll take this number, voltage, which we've already calculated over here, we'll convert that to text. That's what toString means, to text. We'll convert that to a text, and then we'll place that into the text property of the label. All right, let's see if this works. So we'll run the program, and put it over here, and let's say that the current is 5 and the resistance is 4. Well, 4 times 5 is 20 volts, good. Let's say that the current is 10 amps and the resistance is 55 ohms. Okay, that's 550 volts. Yep, that works out fine. So let me close the program, and that's it. All right, so this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. We'll see you next time.